Going to FreeShow. Well, the first thing you probably want to do is you probably want to start importing all your old songs and all that kind of stuff, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but you still have to make a plan for your structure, your process. So I would say start with your templates down here at the bottom. All right. When you get to the templates, I'm going to pull this all the way up so you can see it as big as it can be. They have a number of different templates that are pre-made, right? Some of these that you're looking at on my screen, I actually just duplicated and made my own template. So understand that it's going to look different for you than it does on my screen, but this is where you get to come in and customize. So these are my song templates. They got another category called scripture, and then they got another one called presentations in here as well. And I think I made this one called lower thirds because I just threw that in there. But I would probably, this is a place for you to categorize and organize them. But the reality is when you build your foundation, you want to make sure that you set this up in a way that makes sense for every service, and you can make some tweaks to it as needed. And we'll make those tweaks later on. Those tweaks are not going to be long-term tweaks. This is the long-term. Is our slide going to be huge, right? So let's see. Let me see if this is a active. Okay, so we got that as a scripture. I'm going to pull up an actual song so we can play with how it would look. So you can do a quick search for a song. You can import your own song to just customize it how you want. So I'm going to pull in this song here. Let's see what it looks like. All right. So we got this song here, and I want to make it be big enough because I only have monitors that are in the front of the church, and we want to make sure everybody can see it from front to back. I like my text to be supersized. Okay. So I make my text big and bold. If I go to my templates, this is called big bold, right? It doesn't have any background to it. It's just words and a darker background to it. So the way I set this up, I literally can drag this template into the first slide of the show, and it locks it in to where now everything is going to be using that particular template. All right. Now it was there by default already, but it's because it was already there that I've set it, but I want to make sure to add it to the show. All right. So now I've got that template in place, and the way that I would edit this template, if I wanted to change it, I can just right click on it and click edit. And I might say, oh, I want it to be even bigger than this. So you might click on that and you say, I want it to be a little bit taller in terms of the space that it takes, and go to the text box option and you say, I want it to be a little bit bigger, right? So you can say, I want it to be 130 instead of 120. All right. So our big and bold is bigger and bolder, right? So I can go to show and I can refresh and notice it's zoomed in a little bit. It got a little bit bigger. All right. Now, when it comes to how we adjust this template, you can say that's enough. That's literally all I want from my songs. I just want them all to be big. The text color is white. I want to make sure all my backgrounds are going to be darker. That's great. Once you determine that, you might say, okay, do I have any other ideas of how I want my songs to look, right? So if, for example, I think about it in terms of, do you want a certain template for the main in-house displays and then a different template for your live stream? And in that case, then you need to say, okay, well, what do I want the songs to look like for the live stream? Do I just want to show the main screen that we've got here that just is going to be big like that? Or do I want to show it over a camera? And if you're going to do that, then you say, okay, well, what would this song look like if it were transparent, okay, with no background, and then with just the lyrics at the bottom, right? And so it would look like this. And you would have no background, but you would need to set the template up that has the lyrics. Now, notice I don't have a background on this. So when you see this gray on these templates, that means there's no background there. My recommendation, because I know it's tempting, I've worked with some ministries that want to add their backgrounds to their templates. I would recommend and steer you away from that. As opposed to adding the background to the template, I would add the background. I recommend adding the background to the show. All right. And so I've got a couple different background styles down here. I've got blue ones. I got purple ones. And you can, if you want to have a bunch of different backgrounds, you can do that. But I just added them to this right here. So this background color or whatever the design is can change. And all you would do is go to your media and you would go to wherever you got those files. So you got to have some files. And so I've got some grunge backdrops, and all you would do is just drag those on the top, right? So maybe instead of it being blue, I say I want it to be brown, right? So I drag this to where it's this blue box around this whole slide. as opposed to it just being a one line. If you just make it one line on the side, that blue line over there, it's just going to make a new slide with that brown background. But if I slide it over just a bit, you see that entire box light up. And now look what happens. The entire show changes and it has a new background. And so now this particular show has 3 different designs to it in terms of looks and feels. So if you can be as creative as you want Sunday to Sunday, but the template doesn't change. The background does. But if you made your template have the background, you wouldn't be able to make these different new layouts. Okay. And so let me go back and I'm going to change this one from renaming that to be blue to be brown. Okay. And so it's that simple for your templates. And this is just for songs. All right. Now this is going to be important because we're going to set up a style that's assigned for this, but this is just giving us a preview of what it would look like, right? So we got our big box, or this big no box. We got the big and bold is the one we wanted. So we got the big and bold, and we got our lyrics, our lower lyrics transparent that we've created here. And that's what we said we wanted. You might say, well, let's see what it looks like if I put a box behind it, right? So you might say, I want the lyrics to look like that because I don't know what the camera angle is going to be, because this is going to go away with the lower thirds, right? We're going to have a camera back there. You might want to make sure there's a transparent box behind it. And how do we do that? We can right click on this and look and see exactly how that works. And so for this, I've got these particular outputs on there. I'm going to take that off. We don't want that. But it's got a box. And so when I click on this, this is if you go to items on the right, you'll see there's only one box, one item in this whole layout. And so that item has text on it, and it also has a background to it. So I can go to the text box and I can see that the font and text color is white. I see the font there and it's set to auto size. If you don't have all of your lyrics being one line, then I would make sure to do some type of auto size. For me, I do it on all of my slides just because I'm just not interested in it rolling over at all. So even though this is 4 lines, they all fit, right? And this is set to be 78. I can't fit 4 rows of 78 size font, but because I've got that auto size on, it'll shrink down and I can do 3 rows. I'm sorry, not 4, but I have 3 rows of it. So I would always turn on this auto size and then set it to shrink to fit, and then make it as big as you want in terms of the ideal size, and then make sure to fit down there. That way you won't have anything that runs over. All right. So we've got that set up, and the actual item, if we go here to the item, that's actually the box that this text is in. So it's a text box. It's one text box, but it has parts. So it's got the text box, which has the text. Then we've got the item that has the actual background, the opacity of the background. That's how we made that background see-through. So you can see some of the brown through there because this particular item, the text box, has opacity turned down, okay? And that's pretty much all that's going on that particular template. You want to set that up ahead of time. You don't want to have to do that on the fly. That's not something that needs to happen in real time. This is what happens in that planning phase. To say, hey, okay, we got all of our templates set up and ready to go the way we want them to. For those who just joined us, let me know where you're from, where you're tuning in from, and also make sure to put any questions you may have about planning to launch or implement FreeShow. And I'm giving you a lot of stuff right now. So I'm curious too, have you started using FreeShow in your services on a weekly basis or however often you meet? Are you using it? And if not, why not? What is it that you want to figure out? All right. That's what this is all about. How do we figure out how to launch FreeShow? And right now we're talking about some basics that we planned. So we said, hey, we need to make sure we have some things in place, and that's the templates. So we're talking about templates. Now, once you get your templates in place, then we shift to our styles. So let's go back and let's look at some styles. And so the way that you find your styles is you go to your settings and you would go over to the left and you would select styles. Now, styles are important, right? They actually dictate what the whole output is going to look like. They're not just showing what each slide is going to look like. They're showing what the entire projector is going to show, because you can literally adjust each style to have different things on it. Even though it's showing the same content, you can say, okay, on the projectors, I don't want to have lyrics show up because the projectors are just going to show video. There's a way you can do that. And so let's look at these real quick. So in styles, I've got a bunch of them down here and I can just scroll across. You may only have one. Okay, this is called default. you can just click the button at the bottom that says add, right? Very bottom, and it'll give you another style. So we're going to call this one planning training. And that, you would name yours what you want, right? I'm just naming it that for the training purposes, okay? And so for this, we've got a background color. Now this is crazy because the background color piece is fun. It's something to consider. And I want you to understand that the Bible talks about in Proverbs chapter 4, it says, wisdom is the principal thing. It's an important piece. It's the foundational piece. And all that getting gets, or it says get wisdom, right? So wisdom is principal, get wisdom. But it says in all that getting, get an understanding, right? So all the wisdom you have, all the practical knowledge you have, make sure you understand. For me, I apply that to technology. I apply that to media. And I say, make sure you understand the variables that you have to work with, right? And so I'm going through these. I know you all may have heard this a number of times from me. You go to some of my videos, you're going to probably see some of the similar stuff. But I need to make sure you understand it just like that, right? Just like how if many of you may drive a car, you don't think about a lot of things that go on with the way to start up your car and get it into gear and all that stuff because you understand what you need to do and you do it without even having to think about it. That's what I want us to do when it comes to FreeShow. We should be able to do this without even having to think about it once we get comfortable with the program. So background color. This is interesting because the background color is default to black. You can make it be whatever color your ministry colors are if you want, okay? Now, the black is cool because the black looks like to the audience like there's nothing on the screen. So I like the default to stay black for me. But if you're not going to if you don't want to make it black, so let me show you what it looks like when I say black is the default, right? So right now, if I say clear background, right now, this is a transparent background. So let me go back into my settings. This is my primary output and it's on. And notice I got it set to transparent. So I'm going to turn off transparent and notice what happens. It goes to black and it's set to an invisible window. That's just so I can show it without having to send it to a screen in here because I got YouTube showing up on my screen up here. And so when it comes to understanding those styles, the default is black. Now, when you do clear all, if I go back and I say clear all, it literally goes black because the background for my style is set to black. Let's change that background, right? So let's go back to our settings and on my, so this output for the primary, this on, it's enabled. It's set to a default style. So let's go to our styles and go to my default and I'm gonna change it. Right now it's set to black. Well, my church colors are orange. So I'm gonna go there. I'm not saying that's the case, but let's say it is. That's one of my favorite colors for my theme or whatever in my brand. So let's keep it orange. We go to show and I'm gonna go to my slide, all right? This is the first slide. I've got my template set to it, and I've got a background set to it. Okay, so it's there. The template has yellow text, and the actual background I set to this grungy blue. Okay, so I can go through my slides. Oh, something unexpected happened. Let me clear all. All right, I don't want to show anybody anything. This is what your TV screens or your projectors are going to look like. They're going to literally just show up bright orange. All right, now that can be great if you like bright orange. Now, if you don't want that to be a distraction, like I said, I like to be a ninja, right? When it comes to, when I used to watch Ninja Turtles, so y'all got to forgive me, but the Ninja Turtles, they would always work in the shadows, but they were very effective, right? So they would pop the little smoke and they'd disappear. I want to be that way with me in the media world, and I expect people I work with on the media teams I've served with to be the same way, is that they are invisible, they're not heard, they're not seen, but their impact is shown, all right? So I think about Ninja Turtles when I think about that. So that's where that comes from for me. But I cleared all and it turned orange. That is dictated because of my style. All right. I set the style background to be orange. You could go a step further to say, okay, I want to make my actual background not just be orange, but I want it to show my logo for my ministry. So you can go into your documents and find your logo. Let's see here. I'm gonna go to my website. I got a logo copy. PNG is going to be best. That way it's not going to have a background or outline around it. And so I'm going to select that, and it's got a little streak of orange in it. That's why I like that one. And boom, I've got my logo and I got orange as my default when I clear the show. So the show is gone. But when I turn it back on, that goes away and it goes to the background that I've set, the template that I've set. Clear all, it goes to bright orange. For me, that would be distracting. But if that's the flow of your ministry, it's completely fine. And that's what you would tell your volunteers. This is the style we're going to use. This is how we're going to flow with it, because we want to build that brand, and we want to make sure that people they're going to get used to it. It may seem bright at first, but people get used to it, right? They just expect, oh, that's the default screen, and that's great. All right. Let's see here. We got someone. Oh, my man German from the Netherlands. Okay. I like how you keep repeating. I am learning that way. Thank you. I learned that way as well. So I appreciate that. For those who don't like it, I apologize sincerely, but this is just me being a trainer that I've grown to be. So, so background color, background media, you can literally dictate that. I would recommend doing it based on the brand of your ministry, or just making it black, right? So I can say, okay, I just want the background to be black, and you can keep a logo there if you want to, right? Now, the downside is my logo, if I go back, so if I can go to see how big it is, right? It's big, and it's got this blurred version of it. This goes to the edge of the screen. I can change that based on the media fit. Okay. Now this media fit literally changes everything in terms of any picture that I put into this particular, with this output for that style. So this style is there. Whatever I set here for this, that's how every piece of media is going to fit, including this background media. So I can say I want it to be contained. All right, so I can close it out, and notice now there's no background blur, but it's huge. Okay, so we can say, let's go back down here. We can say fill. If we go to fill, notice that it stretches it. I don't necessarily prefer that anytime. Just a note of advice to anybody that likes to stretch. I would say don't do it, because it does distort the branding. It makes it inconsistent. So I would not recommend that at all. All right. So I would say you can do the contain, but when you do contain, you've got to make sure that the design that you have is actually designed in a frame, I guess you could say, like if you're in Canva or Photoshop or something like that. Make sure it's set to where that it has a 16:9 ratio border with it, so you fit it where you want it to be. And I designed my logo to where it's just completely transparent all around, so it's literally filling the screen because there's nothing around it. There's no border around it. When I exported it out, it's completely empty and transparent. But you can design it to where it won't be this big. You can design it to where it'll just fit right in the middle, okay, based on how you export your images, okay? That's a big deal. The clear style background when slide is active, you can turn that on if you want to. And we go here. For me, it's designed, so let me do this. I'm gonna take off, I'm gonna go to this one. I'm gonna turn off the background on here, okay? And so what it does is it'll do that. So if I do clear all though, the logo comes back. But as soon as I go to a slide, even if that slide doesn't have a background to it, it'll make the logo go away. That's a very useful tool. This is something for you to understand in terms of the flexibility that you have with this program, because remember, the way you start with FreeShow is not the way that you would start with any other program that you've used, unless you're used to using ProPresenter. Okay, ProPresenter is very like that in terms of, very much like that, I should say, in terms of you can have the full flexibility to make it do what you want. And so you can make your logo be there when you clear all, and make it go away when you play a slide, even and keep the background black. Okay, that's definitely an option. So you can make changes to your style, going back to our settings, and you can say, hey, I want to clear this logo, this background, right, when the slide is active, and it'll make it look like you turn on a black background, but really all it's doing is making that go away. So you can turn that on. That's fine. The next thing you can do is you can adjust your transitions. And this is going to really just be based on your preference. I've got my preferences. You can have yours. I will not discriminate against your preferences. All right. So you can see here that you got options to have no transition in the in. You can have a transition in the out. You can also have a transition on the between. I've got mine set to none on the between. But when I go to in, I've got the fade, but you can make it be a blur. I've got on the out, I've got a fade as well. And then on the between, let's say we made it be a blur. Okay. And it's set to 0.5. I'll make it be 1 second long. And we're going to change this style. So I've got, right now, this is what my show looks like. When I go between slides, I'm going to let you guys see it. There you go. So this is that. When I go to, let's say between, I want to make it be a spin. Okay. Let's turn it back up to be 1. And maybe it was the transitions, because I don't usually use the transition on that. Let's see if it'll do it again. If it'll stay working properly. So we got this here. All right, I go to the next slide and it spins in. Okay, so that's the between working. So let me pull it up again so you guys can see it. So this is what it looks like when you turn on the spin. All right, like I said, totally up to you in terms of what you wanted to do. Now it finished the spin. It didn't look like what you guys, okay, there we go. So it looks good on there. It finished on here on the live feed. It looks like it's staying kind of crooked. I might have to do an adjustment to make it fit, but I don't know though, because I don't have it set to an output. Let's see here. I'm gonna say align with screen to make sure it works right. Let's see what it does there. All right, so on my end it does that, and it looks like this. It lines up perfectly. When I make it big for you guys, I don't know if it's flaking out and staying crooked. I needed to align it. I know that. Yeah, it's staying straight now. But to do that, I just hit on a Mac, I just hit Control and I hit this little present button at the top, the little arrow, and I just say align with screen, and it kind of balances everything out. If things are out of alignment or something like that, it'll automatically update for you and kind of pop into place, almost like it's like when I pop my knuckles or something like that is what I think about when I hit that button. All right, so that's the style for spinning. You can set your transitions to be whatever you want. You got all kinds of options, scale, blur. For me, the between, I like to keep it as simple as possible. So I make it to where it's none, but you might like the scale, right? And so I'll say, oh, that's the end. Let me change this back to fade, and we'll do the between to be a scale change, all right? And go back to the shows. I'm just clicking. This is my recently used shows, so it's still there. And I can go here, and there's that. And it does that, which is pretty clean. I like that look, especially when you have a lot of text. I wouldn't do that probably for praise and worship songs and lyrics. I wouldn't probably do it for scriptures, but for just a presentation, sermon notes or something like that, I think it's pretty cool. All right. And so that would be something to consider. All right. Now so if you're not going to do it for every slide, you wouldn't want to do it in your style. That's the point. So if you don't want this to be across the board, then you don't want to do it here, because this is the foundational stuff, right? So you might say, hey, you know what? I don't want any of that stuff going on. So I'm going to turn it off. And the only thing will be we can have it fade in and out, and that's it, okay? Because you can set those transitions to happen per show. That's a separate thing. That's like icing on the top. This is all the foundational must-have things, okay? Your resolution, this is going to be dictated by the setup that you have. If you got 8K monitors at your church, maybe you've got a big LED screen like that one church I was talking about, the resolution is going to be different than 1920 by 1080. Okay. You want to adjust that here, and you would just set it up, and it's got some nice defaults for you. And if you change those, resolution is unique because resolution is literally what it is. It's like, okay, if I change it to be 720, but still the same ratio, 16 by 9, 16 by 9 there, when I click that, it literally just makes the pixels are just bigger. So now everything is just bigger in the screen. So I have to customize and reset and reorganize these to where they'll fit in that particular resolution. I think 1920 by 1080 is a good default, even if you've got 4K displays, probably even if you got 8K displays, because for me, when I think about slides, when I think about presentations, the goal is for them to be seen, right? When you start making your resolution 8K and 4K, what ends up happening is the opposite of when we went down to 720. When you go to 8K, everything shrinks, okay? And you have to reorganize and redesign it to where the fonts are bigger and everything else. That's fine, but 1920 by 1080 is a good, safe way to do it, and you can still have decent resolution where everything's visible and it's easy to read. Okay, so 1920 by 1080 is, I believe it's the default, and it'll be there, and that's a good way to start. All right, and I would recommend keeping it there. So you won't see that in the future updates. So those who are watching this video, you probably won't have that issue once the next update comes out. All right, so active layers, we got slides. So this is where we talked about, hey, we're sending out the same content. We're doing it to multiple outputs, but in different formats. All this can be different for each monitor or screen or projector that you're using, and even what shows up. So these three here, this is the big three. So the backgrounds, the slides, and the overlays. This is a part of that foundational understanding of before you start using FreeShow, what do we want the background to be, or do we even want there to be a background? What do we want do we want the slide to be there, and do we want the overlays to show up on every single monitor in the church, in the foyer, in the lobby, in the downstairs area, in the main in-house area on the live stream? Do we want overlays everywhere? Most likely you don't. So you may not want your overlay. Now I say overlay. An overlay is literally, it can be as simple as a logo. So your ministry logo could be an overlay. It could be as simple as you might make an overlay that has like a lower third pop out, right? But that's a whole nother thing. There's a lot of ways you can do that. But you can do overlays and have those active, but you want to be conscious of, okay, well, what overlays am I going to show and how's it going to look? And how am I going to make sure that it's not showing where I don't want it to show and make sure it is showing where I do want it to show? You literally can customize it at a overall level. You can say, hey, I don't want this to ever have overlays, this particular output, because this output is going to be in-house. So I don't need it to have it. But I think you might want it because you might want to show a lower thirds of the title of the person speaking, particularly. Or you might say, you know what, in-house, we don't need that because we're going to have a big slide that's going to show their name and their picture and all that kind of stuff that's going to be completely custom. That's great. You would turn off overlays. So anytime a logo is going to appear as an overlay, it won't show up in-house, but it'll show up everywhere else. It'll show up on the live stream, which is a great place to have a logo if you're going to be live streaming. Make sure to have your ministry logo. Make sure to have some lower third pop-ups and all that kind of stuff to show up. It may be one that shows where they can give, or one that shows the website name and all those kind of things. Those are helpful, but they're not needed in-house all the time, right? If at all. So you can turn that completely off for this complete style that's going to go in-house. But when you do the one that's going to be on the live stream, I've got a bunch of ones here that I've called streams. So this is a ministry I work with. I've got overlays on, but I've got no background on because this is a full video. I work with them remotely, so I help them do a live stream. There's no background needed because it's going to be their video of them. And I've got slides where I can put lower thirds. If you notice down here, we've got override slide with a template, right? So when we go to idea of a slide in FreeShow has to do with the actual individual pages. This is a slide. This is a slide. This is a slide. The challenge that we have is each slide that you see, you think of it as the background and the text and the overlays. But in FreeShow, those are all completely separate. So if I turn off the background, this is the slide. It's just the text. Okay. This is the slide right here. The overlays are something completely different, and the background is something completely different. They're not all merged together as one thing. You literally can splice them apart, and you can do that at a overall level in the styles, or you can do it at a granular level individually for each show. You can literally customize what shows up. So that we're not even at that point yet. We're just literally setting the stage for the overall, right? So when we talk about a slide, we're literally just talking about the text that shows up. Even if it's a header, if it's bullet points, if it's pictures, I'd say pictures. If you put the picture so if the picture is a place in here, and so let's say I pull this up, I'm gonna just drag this up. If you add an item and you want to add media to this, and so this is my media box. You can see it down here highlighted. If I go to media and I add it to the slide, so I can go here and I can add that logo on the slide if I wanted to. So I can say, okay, I'm gonna add this logo on the slide. It's not an overlay. It's literally built into my slide. It'll be there. So if we go to show, I got that there. There it is. So I can turn off backgrounds. It's an image. But look at that. It stays there because it's a part of the slide. So when you click edit, right, all these little boxes that you see, those are all a part of the slide. This background color is not a part of the slide. It's literally just a background. Okay, I can make that be whatever color I want by just changing the background or switching to different media. Okay, so I was just wanting to show you guys you can have this kind of stuff on a slide if you wanted to. So graphics can be there. The default is it's showing this little icon like it's text because it's saying, hey, it's text typically that you're going to have on the slide, but you can put images in there if you want to, but you would have to put them in there on that edit level. Okay. The lines, so you can make it to where it defaults to have one. Okay. Let me see what happened to my content. So when I click that, check that out. Oh, now I like that. All right. Sorry. Okay. So I'm learning something new here. No matter how much text you have. So I've got this slide here. You can see that it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullets. It just shows one bullet at a time. Oh, man. I like that. So I can click in here and it'll show the next one. So it's that styles. Hit arrow to the right again, it goes to output. Hit arrow to the right again, it goes to timers. So no matter how much text you've got on your show, on each slide, you can set the default of how much will show. So you can set it to where it's just one line per slide. And the cool thing about it for me is that it's doing it on that, I guess you could call it the main text level. I'm not sure that main box, but my title stays there, which is important, right? So I've got this separate box. When I go to my show, if you go to edit, you'll see that my shows have a separate box here and a separate box there. And if I go down, I'm curious if it picks a certain box. Christopher, you can help me out. Does it pick a certain box? Does it have to be at the top or the bottom for that to work? So let's see. So my templates, let's see. So this is planning is at the bottom, and then this one is at the top. So I don't know if it picks the second box or the top box is like the header box. I don't know, but I really like that feature, and I've never used it before, you guys. So forgive me for my excitement. So I can make this be 2 per slide, and it'll automatically adjust to show just 2 lines per slide. That is really cool. All right. Okay. So you can change how many lines are showing up, right? So if you set it to 0, it's basically saying it's not active, so it won't actually do anything. And then, like I said, you can turn on and off any of the features, right? So what people see, they're going to see these 3 things. They're going to see the background, they're going to see the slide, and they're going to see overlays. You can literally deactivate or activate those because they are separate in FreeShow. Remember, we talked about same content. Yes, we're not changing the actual content on the slide in terms of removing content, but we are changing the layers on the slide, let's say, that are going to be visible. So the background, we can make it just not be shown on certain screens, and we can make it be shown on other screens because one screen is going to be having this style, right, in terms of outputs, and another one is going to have a different style called announcements, and that one may have no slide text and no overlays. It just has background images, for example. Okay, that's how that will work, and you can literally customize all that from the styles. All right, so override with a template. We've talked about this one in depth before, but the override with a template is similar to this override the lines idea in a sense, but it allows you to pick, and this is a new update here. I love this. This is a really cool feature where you can actually see and search for your particular templates that you've got. Remember, we talked about templates being the first foundation to this. This is why, because you literally can change how your whole style looks by picking a particular template that you want. And you would just pick the one you want. Right now, I'm using this one on that particular show. And if you go back, if I close this out, you'll notice I don't have any defaults on these, right? So if I go here and I go to that one that I was using for my presentation, if I click that here, notice what happens to my song lyrics. They go up to the top too because I've got that to override my song lyrics. I call it text yellow, right? But I don't want that. So I can go back. Let me see. I'm going to turn it off. And so I don't want it to do that. I can go back to my show and I can click on anything and it'll go back to whatever it was for this particular show. I would like for this particular output, I would like for my templates that I create to be the dictator. Okay. But if you're doing like a output for a live stream, you might say, I want this to always be lower thirds. There's no reason for it not to be. So you would say, okay, let me go down and pick a lower thirds template. So I got lower third lyrics right here, lower third lyrics. And it says SMI, that's the ministry. I got one that's purple. So I said, let's do the purple one. All right. And notice what happens. The lyrics, they went to the purple background. Okay. But it's in the lower thirds portion. Override scriptures with a template. And so if you override the scriptures with a template, it literally says, okay, anything that is tagged with the category in your shows for, let's see here, I got songs and scripture. So it's got this little icon on the bottom left there, if you can see that. And so the scriptures, you will find them from here. They got the icon there as well. When you make a show that has that on there, let's see if I go here. And so let's say this one. Right now I've got this as my default. It's showing up with that inverted version of it, which is an old template. So I don't want that one on there. Let me remove that. Let's go to a new set. And so I'm gonna say new show. All right, so it defaults here, New American Standard Bible 2020. And I go back to my style. So I got a scripture there, but I say, I want to override all the scripture. Oh, let me go back and show it. It's active. All right. So I want to change the default to be another lower thirds thing. So this is our live stream, for example. I would say, let me find any scriptures with a lower thirds box. Here's one that's rounded. I like the rounded box. So let's click on that and see what it does. And so it does something, but what I notice is the text stays white. And that's just because, let me go back to my show, and I wonder if I can fix that from here. No. The number is blue because I set it to be blue. But let's go down. You can't change the color of your actual text. It's literally decided by the template that you have here. So if I go to my templates for that curved one, let me see what the color is for that. Under scripture templates. So I've got it there. Oh, I clicked it, but it should be black. It should show up as black like that. Let me go to the settings and let's see. So it's kind of like a dark grayish color, which that's fine, but it's showing up there. All right. So if I go to, let's see if we do another set of scriptures. I'm just do 2 here. All right, let's right click on that and say new show. And it didn't put it in there that way. Let me see. I got it set to override scripture with a template for the default. And this is my default. Okay, that's good. And so it's showing here. When I click on that, yeah, it's still doing that funky change for it in terms of the color. And so I have to consider what would be causing that. So basically, whatever your colors are set here, that color of the text will carry over to your slide up here. Interesting. Learning something new every day. This is one thing I love about this program. All right. And then it also is still keeping that line thing going on. So I can turn that off and turn it to 0, and it won't have to make me click, because it was at first it was hiding the New American Standard Bible down here, but I made it to where it won't do that. When I had it on one line, it just had the first thing and I had the arrow again, which is cool. Display metadata. This is something that's completely up to you. You can determine where you want to show. Metadata has to do with the context or the details of your songs, right? Typically, it may. Does it have anything to do with the? Does this metadata have it? Does it have anything to do with the scriptures as well? Those who know, let me know. I don't use it at all. I have it on no slides, but you can set it to where it's on all your slides. You can set it to where it's on the first and last, the last slide only, or the first slide. Okay, and that has to do with the source where you get it from. I know that much. And then you can also change your message template, right? Right now, the message template is set to message. Let me see what my message template looks like. So it's right there at the top. But you might say, you know what? I want mine to be at the bottom. I want it to be a scroll. I had made a message scroll option here that would be could be a used one. And you can make it to where you can set that up and pick which template. These are all the templates that we talked about. That has to come first. Otherwise, you'll come here. There won't be anything to select. But you can make your templates how you want. You say, okay, our church, we want our message to be at the bottom with a blue scroll bar with white text, because that's our color themes for our ministry, right? You can do that, all right, which is really cool. Right now, it defaults to being right at the top. And so this is the styles.